Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to discuss this afternoon the important sections under chapter 1, which is the introduction, so that you can all start and begin your research paper. Okay, let's begin. First stop is our objectives. For this afternoon, we aim to finish discussing about the sections which in introduction, which are statement of the problems, rationale, framework, and scope and limitations. These are the things that we have to know or we have to learn so that we can start writing our research paper. Okay, so just as a reminder, I already discussed this last week, but I hope that you all remember that there's a format that you have to follow in writing your research manuscript. Okay, so these are the formats, are the guidelines that you have to follow. It's a maximum of 25 pages, approximately around 5,000 to 25,000 words only. You have to use an A4 bond paper, and then your font size should be in Arial, and your font size should be 12, and you must have 1.5 spacing, and make sure that your margins are correct. On the left margin will be 1.5 inch, and right top and bottom margin should be 1 inch. And then you always have to use APA citation style or APA 6th edition style. Okay, so if possible, you can download Mendeley app so that it will be easier for you to write your references or your list of references at the end of your research paper. Okay, but just in case that you will have a problem with using Mendeley, make sure that you know how to manually encode your references using APA style. Okay, sige. Now, your research paper should have a title page, and this is how your title page should look like. Just make sure that you will follow the guideline provided by your program head. Okay, I will update this in your Facebook group or in the Google Classroom for your reference. Okay, just make sure that your title should have at least 12 words up to a maximum of 12 words only. Okay, and also with the main variables. Main variables are the things that you should focus on your research paper. We already discussed this last meeting. Okay, now just as a review, these are the sections included in your introduction. You must have your rationale, you must have your statement of the problem, hypothesis, framework, which should include theoretical framework, conceptual framework, and also your schematic diagram. And lastly will be the scope and limitation. Okay, but for the first part of this afternoon's lesson, I'm going to start with statement of the problem, because as I have mentioned in our previous meeting, that everything begins with a question in mind. So it must be clear to us what is our objective, or what is the thing that we want to research on, or we want to find out after we conducted our research. So statement of the problem will be the anchor of everything else. So we need to start first with the statement of the problem, and then we will move on with the hypothesis. And then later on, we will also move, after the hypothesis, I will discuss the scope and limitation. After that will be the second part, which will be the review of related literature. And when we do review of related literature, we build up our rationale and our framework. Okay, so this is how I'm going to divide my discussion for this afternoon. Okay, sige, let's start with statement of the problem. Now, statement of the problem is a brief introduction explaining the problem or issue of the project. Our statement of the problem is our main objective. Okay, what is the main reason why we are going to conduct our research, or what do we want to find out? That is the statement of the problem. Okay, and research questions are questions that identifies the phenomenon to be studied. So what are the specific questions that we want to find out? Okay, so in your chapter 1 introduction, you must have your opening statement or the statement of the problem, which briefly introduce what are the variables that you will focus on in studying your research. or in conducting your research. And then specifically, you will move on with the research questions, or what are the questions that you have to answer at the end of your study. Okay, sige, your statement of the problem should be aligned with the title and or the main problem. So what are the variables that will be mentioned in your research questions should be present also in your main title. Later on, I will provide examples so that you will further understand what I'm talking about. Okay, again, this is quantitative research. We are highly encouraging you to do a quantitative research, so you must have a quantifiable terms or a quantifiable variables, okay, in your statement of the problem. And then you have to specify the questions needed to be answered. So you must be specific. What are the things that you really want to find out after your after you conduct your research? Okay. Sige, just as a reminder, your introduction statement or the paragraph states, or the first paragraph in the section of statement of the problem should be your main objective. Okay, that's your introductory statement or statement of the problem. And then after your first paragraph or statement of the problem, you must go to your specific research questions, which should have two questions. One is a descriptive question covering the independent and dependent variable, and then you must also have inferential questions. You can have like 2 or 3 descriptive questions, and you can also have 2 or 3 or 2 or more inferential questions. But make sure that you, in your statement of the problem section, you must have your opening statement. After that is you go to specific research questions. First thing is the descriptive questions, and then last one will be your inferential questions. Okay? Sige, this is one example of a statement of the problem section. Okay, so the research title will be the readiness of grade 11 students for practical research. As you can see, the variables or the focus of the study for this specific research will be the readiness of the grade 11 students for practical research. So those are the variables: the readiness, the grade 11 students, and then the topic, which is the practical research. Okay, so my introductory statement or the statement of the problem will be, this research study aims. Okay, aims because you are still proposing. So this research study aims to determine the level of readiness of grade 11 senior high school students for practical research. So it's very clear that my aim or my objective will be to determine the level of readiness. So level of readiness will be quantifiable because it can be measured by highly ready or slightly ready or not ready. So the survey can have or can project those Likert scale: highly ready, slightly ready, or not ready. So it's in quantifiable terms. Okay, and then if you will notice also that level of readiness and the grade 11 students and practical research are all present in both the title and the statement of the problem. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about a while ago. Your statement of the problem or the variables should be mentioned or should be reflected in both the research title and your statement of the problem. Okay, so after you wrote your statement of the problem, you can now go specifically to your research questions. Okay, the first descriptive question will be, what is the level of readiness? So you want to describe whether the senior high school students are highly ready or not ready. So that's descriptive questions. So my first question should be, what is the level of readiness of grade 11 students for practical research? And then you can in your descriptive question, you can now insert your research variables or the groupings. I opted to have groupings in or the independent variables as the sex and the strand, And then the dependent variable will be the level of readiness. It means to say that I want to study whether or not there's a difference between the level of readiness in terms of male and female, and in terms of STEM, ABM, or arts and design. Okay, so my first descriptive question will be, what is the level of readiness of grade 11 students for practical research when grouped, or when taken as a whole and grouped according to sex and strand? Okay, good. And then after that, I move into the inferential question, or the inferential question is be looking into if there is a significant difference or significant relationship. Okay, so it's very simple. I just want to find out if is there a significant difference in the level of readiness of grade 11 students when they are grouped and compared according to sex and strand. So that's what I want to find out. So this is the format of how you will do your statement of the problem. Again, you must have your statement of the problem, your descriptive question, and then you moved on to your inferential question. Okay, so that's basically your statement of the problem. Now let's move on to hypothesis. Now, hypothesis, the only thing that you have to remember in your hypothesis, this is your educated prediction. Okay, so this is your guess. Okay, your prediction, your predicted output of what what your research can find out after you conducted your study. Okay, that is your hypothesis. Now, in this business research, we would like you to only have or focus on your statistical hypothesis. Okay, means what is a statistical hypothesis? Means that you will just predict whether or not there's a significant difference or significant relationship. Okay, that's why a while ago, in your statement of the problem, you have your problem number 2, which is your inferential question. Is there a significant difference? So what will be our hypothesis? So our hypothesis can be it's either there is or there is no significant difference. Okay, so that's we can limit our hypothesis to statistical hypothesis. Okay. Now, as I have mentioned, there are 2 types of hypothesis. The first one is the null hypothesis. The only thing that we have to remember in null hypothesis is our prediction will be no effect. Okay, so we are predicting that there will be no effect in our research variables. Okay, so there will be no effect on the groups of the independent variables, and it will not affect the dependent variables or the outcome of the research. Okay, so that's null hypothesis. Then the second one is the alternative hypothesis. In short, this is the prediction where we are predicting that there is a significant relationship between the variables. So it's contradicting to the null hypothesis. So what you are going to do is you are going to do null hypothesis. Okay, you go back to your research question and then you make your hypothesis. Okay, so in this case, our research question is there a significant difference in the level of readiness of grade 11 students for practical research when they are grouped and compared according to sex and strand? So what will be our null hypothesis? So we are going to predict that there is no significant difference in the extent of in the level of readiness of grade 11 senior high school students for practical research when they are grouped and compared according to sex and or strand. Okay, so right now we already finished the statement of the problem, and then we also finished hypothesis. Okay, sige, please watch out for the next set of video.